Alright, so this is another attempt at this video. Um, so I have never made physical prints of any of my work before in order to use them in this kind of way. Like I've made prints obviously to like hang up ones I really like, things like that. But never sort of for this purpose. In how I originally had them set up and then trying them around a couple times, I started a video in a different way with these ones here on the bottom all first. And something I realized is, like, as you look at all of these pictures, there's a bunch of different emotions and things happening in them, and it's capturing a bunch of different expressions and feelings. I took all these pictures while I'm also a singer and an actor, and so I took all of these pictures while I was singing different songs and then also saying different monologues. So, you know, the feelings are captured are actually real feelings, which is fun in a weird way, because also kind of weird because seeing my own facial expressions sometimes is a little awkward. But the one thing that I did realize after doing these separately is that these pictures have a little bit of a disconnect in them in terms of sort of like the first set and then these ones here on the bottom and then like these. But one thing I noticed was that after looking at all of these first and then coming back and looking at these home pictures, after printing these, I realized that I really like this sort of an idea that I've kind of got going on. Fort Lauderdale has a lot of really cool like buildings and things like this, so I think that could make a really interesting series. But one thing I noticed really was that it sort of started to create an emotion in these buildings, having sort of different options and different identifying emotions, you know, whether it's happiness or sadness or anger or whatever, kind of pulls all that into these, which I hadn't noticed before, and it wasn't really something that I had given much thought to. But you know, there's a lot going on in just these pictures in terms of the feeling, and it's not just a picture of a boarded up house, you know, it's got hurricane shutters and, you know, an old rundown one and boarded up other homes and things like that. So that's one thing that I have sort of discovered within these, and I really like having the physical prints because it is hard for me to see an order with all of these just on a digital scale, like having them all like this big on your computer and trying to sort through an order, but then trying to go through it in sequencing, it doesn't always come out so well. So these three, like at all the ones that I found, like these three are sort of where the disconnect is almost, and they kind of make their own, like these two almost make their own little like sequence happening, and then this one's kind of on its own. But these ones all together I think are really kind of tell an interesting story and kind of find an interesting exploration in there. So I printed them out just at CVS because it was easy, and I printed them out on the 4x6s. I was going to try to do the contact sheets and then cut them out, but the cost effectiveness of trying to print pictures, I'm probably not going to keep all of them anyways, or they're going to go in a drawer. The 4x6 option that she gave us is just a much better cost-effective option. You know, I like the size of them because for me personally, I can see them bigger than what they look like just as a smaller contact sheet. Like it's half the size, I don't feel like would be quite as effective to see, more personally for me, because I've got bad eyes, so it helps to have them bigger. You know, the discoveries that I did make obviously were the first couple about like seeing these as kind of their own interesting story and their own interesting kind of meanings that they bring out themselves, but also just seeing a connection between things that I honestly, before I printed, I didn't really see had too much of a connection. Like what if these pictures of myself with all these types of emotions have to do with homes, and little snippets of buildings. And like making choices, I think going back and redoing these, the things that like I've discovered about like these ones specifically is like I really like the black versus sort of the lighter background. It especially for like this is one of my favorite ones. And then this one is one of my favorite ones as well. They just have something about the black background really kind of makes the emotion just sort of pop out and become very focused on that. Whereas, I like this picture and I like the framing of it and things like that, but I feel like the grayness of the color, because of the lights that I was using and things like that, just the lightness of the background almost draws your eye to the side, versus focusing on the point of the photograph. I think these ones that have sort of the black background really focus in on the expression and the emotion behind it. It just pulls you in and makes you focus. Even with like these ones, they're pretty solitary, like comfortable pictures. I'm probably was not talking at the moment, but still within that emotion, and it just, these two have such a different feeling to them with the backgrounds. And so I think for me that's a kind of a big discovery that I made is making sure, like, how do the backgrounds affect what I'm photographing, because I just feel like this one, for example, like if this was in a black background, like how much more powerful is that going to be when it's forcing you to look into the eyes of that person, like forcing you to confront that feeling, and it is kind of an uncomfortably close picture, but I really like it. I'm not a huge fan of taking my own picture or having my picture taken, but so this was also kind of also an interesting discovery of my comfortability in terms of things like that. And then within obviously my favorite pictures are kind of probably like these ones. I just really like the emotions that are popping out within them. Even this one, like these ones, unfortunately, they're a little bit blurry. It's hard to tell. If you look at the digital one, it'll be a little easier. You can almost kind of fool that one's fully in focus, but it's not quite. Camera focused over here versus up here, and I think if I was to do something like this again, I would do it with somebody so they could help me, or at least make sure that it's focused in the right spot, or use a clicker to like do that. And then I think the quality of the pictures actually came out pretty similar to what I had online, which was nice. Just adjusting the colors a little bit really helped, and things like that when I was doing it online. But yeah, ultimately I think this is a really cool experience. Never thought about printing my digital pictures to see the body of work in this kind of a way, but I definitely feel like that this will probably be something I definitely do moving forward. So all right, hope you enjoy.